Three popular girls thought they could humiliate the quiet transfer student at prom. They had no idea she was a third-degree black belt in Taekwondo. Sophia Chun pressed her fingertips against the cool glass of her bedroom window, watching the unfamiliar landscape of Cedar Valley, Tennessee stretch out before her. The rolling hills dotted with horse farms and sprawling oak trees couldn't have been more different from the concrete jungle of downtown Chicago, where she had spent the first 17 years of her life. Everything here moved slower, felt smaller, and carried the weight of traditions that seemed to stretch back generations. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The move to Cedar Valley had been as sudden as it was unwanted. When her father, Dr. Michael Chun, received the offer to head the cardiac surgery department at Cedar Valley Medical Center, the family had exactly 3 weeks to uproot their entire lives and relocate to what Sophia privately considered the middle of nowhere. Her mother, Patricia, had tried to frame it as an adventure, a chance to experience small-town charm and build closer community connections. But Sophia knew the real reason behind their hasty departure from Chicago. Her father's former hospital was facing a massive malpractice lawsuit, and starting fresh in Tennessee offered him a clean slate away from the scrutiny of big city medical politics. At 17, Sophia possessed the kind of quiet confidence that came from years of disciplined training. Though her athletic build was carefully concealed beneath oversized sweaters and dark jeans, her long black hair, usually pulled back in a practical ponytail, framed delicate features that held an intensity most people mistook for shyness. What they didn't see was the steel beneath the surface, forged through 12 years of intensive Taekwondo training under Master Kim's demanding instruction at his dojang in Chicago's Chinatown. Master Kim had been more than an instructor. He had been a second father who taught Sophia that true martial arts wasn't about fighting, but about discipline, respect, and the courage to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. 3 months before the move, Sophia had tested for and earned her third-degree black belt, an achievement that represented not just physical skill, but mental fortitude and spiritual growth. The worn black belt now hung in her new closet like a reminder of the person she had worked so hard to become. Cedar Valley High School loomed before her like a red brick fortress as her mother's silver Lexus pulled into the student parking lot. On that crisp Monday morning in late April, the school, built in the 1950s and expanded several times since, housed just over 1,200 students from Cedar Valley and the surrounding rural communities. Unlike the diverse melting pot of her Chicago high school, Cedar Valley High's population was overwhelmingly homogeneous, and Sophia could feel the weight of curious stares as she walked through the main entrance. The hallways buzzed with the particular energy that came in the final months of senior year, when established social hierarchies felt more entrenched than ever, and any disruption to the status quo was met with intense scrutiny. Sophia navigated toward the main office, her sneakers silent on the polished linoleum floors as she passed clusters of students who paused their conversations to examine the newcomer with undisguised interest. Mrs. Reynolds, the school secretary, was a kind woman in her 60s who had worked at Cedar Valley High for over 3 decades. She handed Sophia her class schedule and locker assignment with a warm smile that did little to ease the butterflies in Sophia's stomach. The transition from a school of 4,000 students, where anonymity was easy to achieve, to one where everyone seemed to know everyone else's business, felt overwhelming. Her first period advanced placement literature class was taught by Mr. Harrison, a scholarly man in his 40s who welcomed her with professional courtesy before diving into a discussion of symbolism in The Great Gatsby. Sophia found herself assigned to a desk near the back corner, which suited her preference for observing rather than being observed. As F. Scott Fitzgerald's themes of wealth, class, and social dynamics filled the classroom discussion, Sophia couldn't help but notice how the same principle seemed to apply to her new school's social ecosystem. During the transition between first and second periods, Sophia got her first real glimpse of Cedar Valley High's social hierarchy in action. Near the main staircase, a group of 3 girls commanded attention simply by existing in the space. The clear leader was Madison Williams, a tall blonde with perfectly styled hair and the kind of effortless beauty that came from good genetics and expensive maintenance. Her father owned the largest car dealership in the county, and her mother had been homecoming queen at this very school 20 years earlier. Madison moved through the hallways with the confidence of someone who had never questioned her place. At the top of the social pyramid, flanking Madison were her 2 constant companions, Jessica Parker, a petite brunette whose family owned several successful restaurants in town, and Ashley Morrison, a redhead whose sharp wit was matched only by her talent for identifying and exploiting other people's weaknesses. Together, they formed what everyone simply called the Trinity, a trio that had dominated Cedar Valley High's social scene since freshman year. Sophia observed their interaction with other students as she made her way to her second period, chemistry class. Underclassmen stepped aside automatically when they approached, while other seniors vied for acknowledgement with desperate smiles and carefully calculated compliments. It was a dance Sophia recognized from her previous school, though the stakes felt somehow higher in Cedar Valley's smaller pond. Chemistry class provided a temporary refuge from social navigation as Sophia focused on balancing equations and reviewing atomic structures. Her lab partner, David Kim, no relation to her former master despite the shared surname, was a quiet, studious boy who seemed genuinely interested in academics rather than social positioning. He provided helpful guidance on the lab procedures, while maintaining the kind of respectful distance that Sophia appreciated during her adjustment period. The real test came during lunch period, when the cafeteria's social geography became impossible to ignore. Cedar Valley High's cafeteria was a study in unspoken but rigid territorial divisions. The football players and their girlfriends claimed the central tables, their letter jackets and animated conversations marking them as the undisputed royalty of the school's athletic hierarchy. The Trinity held court at a nearby table, their designer outfits and perfectly applied makeup creating an invisible barrier between themselves and the rest of the student body. Sophia selected a turkey sandwich and bottled water, scanning the room for somewhere to sit that wouldn't immediately align her with any particular social faction. She spotted an empty table near the large windows that offered both natural light and a clear view of the room's dynamics. As she settled into her seat, she became aware that her choice had not gone unnoticed. Madison Williams' voice carried easily across the cafeteria's ambient noise as she gestured toward Sophia's table. "Look at the new girl, sitting all alone like she's too good for the rest of us. Very mysterious." Her tone carried just enough volume to ensure that nearby tables could overhear, while maintaining the plausible deniability of casual conversation. Jessica Parker giggled in response, her eyes scanning Sophia's outfit with the practiced assessment of someone accustomed to cataloging social hierarchies through fashion choices. She's probably one of those artsy types who think she's deep and misunderstood. The kind who writes poetry about her feelings and thinks small towns are beneath her intellectual sophistication. Ashley Morrison, never one to miss an opportunity for verbal sparring, added her own observation with characteristic sharpness. Give her a week. She'll either learn how things work around here, or she'll spend the rest of senior year eating lunch alone while everyone ignores her existence. Sophia continued eating her sandwich with practiced composure, though every word reached her ears with crystal clarity. Master Kim had taught her to remain calm in the face of provocation, to observe without reacting, and to never allow other people's negativity to disturb her inner peace. Still, the casual cruelty of their assumptions stung more than she cared to admit. The afternoon brought more classes and more opportunities to observe Cedar Valley High's complex social dynamics. During the third period of American history, Sophia noticed how certain students dominated class discussions while others remained silent, not from lack of knowledge but from fear of saying something that might mark them as targets for social ridicule. In fourth period calculus, she watched a quiet girl named Rebecca Martinez get mocked for asking a question about derivatives, the laughter coming primarily from students who clearly understood the material less well than she did. By the time the final bell rang at 3:15, Sophia had gained a comprehensive understanding of her new school's social ecosystem. Cedar Valley High operated on the same principles as every high school she had ever observed. A small group of popular students maintained their position through a combination of charisma, wealth, social connections, and carefully applied intimidation, while everyone else arranged themselves in descending levels of acceptance and invisibility. What made Cedar Valley different was the intensity that came with a smaller population, where reputations were harder to escape and social mistakes could follow you for years. In Chicago, Sophia had been able to maintain her privacy and avoid most social drama through the simple expedient of blending into the crowd. Here, anonymity seemed impossible, and every choice felt weighted with potential consequences. Walking toward the student parking lot where her mother would pick her up, Sophia reflected on Master Kim's teachings about adapting to new environments. A wise martial artist studies the terrain before engaging, he had often said. Understanding your surroundings is as important as understanding yourself. Today had been about observation and assessment, learning the rules of engagement in her new social battlefield. As she climbed into her mother's Lexus, Patricia Chun's concerned expression suggested she had already heard something about Sophia's first day through the surprisingly efficient Cedar Valley Gossip Network. "How was it, sweetheart?" Patricia asked, her voice carrying the careful neutrality of a mother trying not to project her own anxieties onto her daughter's experience. "Educational," Sophia replied, watching the school recede in the passenger side mirror. "I'm still figuring out how everything works here, but I think I understand the basic structure." What Sophia didn't yet realize was that her careful observation and strategic thinking had not gone unnoticed. Madison Williams had spent the day conducting her own assessment of the new arrival, and she had reached conclusions that would soon make Sophia's life considerably more complicated. In Madison's worldview, there was room for only one queen in Cedar Valley High's social kingdom, and any potential challenger needed to be neutralized before they could gain a foothold. As the Lexus pulled away from Cedar Valley High, neither Sophia nor her mother could have imagined that prom night, just 6 weeks away, would become the stage for a confrontation that would test everything Master Kim had taught about courage, discipline, and the true meaning of strength. The second week at Cedar Valley High brought with it a series of subtle but escalating challenges that tested Sophia's resolve to maintain her low profile. What had started as curious observations from her classmates gradually evolved into more pointed interactions, particularly from Madison Williams and her inner circle. Tuesday morning found Sophia at her locker, organizing her textbooks for the day ahead, when she became aware of Madison approaching with her characteristic confident stride. Unlike the previous week's distant commentary, this felt more intentional, more direct. "Sophia, right?" Madison's voice carried the kind of practiced friendliness that didn't quite reach her eyes. "I'm Madison Williams. I wanted to welcome you to Cedar Valley personally." Sophia turned to face her, noting how Madison had positioned herself to block the hallway traffic, creating an audience for whatever was about to unfold. "Thank you. That's very thoughtful. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. I couldn't help but notice you seem a little isolated," Madison continued, her tone shifting slightly to one of manufactured concern. "Cedar Valley can be overwhelming for outsiders. The social dynamics here are probably quite different from whatever big city you came from." "Chicago," Sophia replied simply, recognizing the fishing expedition for what it was. "Chicago." Madison's eyebrows rose with exaggerated surprise. "How glamorous. You must find our little town terribly boring after all that urban sophistication. I imagine you're counting the days until you can escape back to civilization." The comment was designed to elicit either defensive denial or arrogant confirmation, both of which would provide Madison with ammunition for future attacks. Sophia had seen this particular manipulation tactic used countless times in various social settings, and she responded with carefully neutral honesty. "Cedar Valley is different from Chicago, but different doesn't necessarily mean better or worse. I'm still adjusting, but I appreciate the chance to experience something new." Madison's smile faltered slightly at the diplomatic response, clearly having expected something more provocative to work with. "How refreshingly open-minded of you. Well, if you ever need guidance on how things work around here, don't hesitate to ask. We locals have to stick together." As Madison walked away, Sophia caught the meaningful glances exchanged between Jessica and Ashley, who had been positioned strategically nearby to witness the interaction. She recognized the encounter for what it was, an opening gambit in what promised to be a more sustained campaign of social pressure. During third period American history, Sophia experienced her first direct academic challenge from Madison's influence. NETWORK Mr. Patterson had assigned a group project on the civil rights movement, and students were supposed to form teams of 4. As Sophia looked around the classroom for potential partners, she noticed that several students who had seemed friendly during previous classes suddenly avoided eye contact or claimed to have already formed complete groups. The social isolation was subtle but effective. Leaving Sophia partnered with 3 other students who had been similarly excluded from the more popular alliances. David Kim from chemistry class, a shy girl named Emma Rodriguez whose family had moved to Cedar Valley from El Paso the previous year, and Marcus Thompson, a tall African-American student who played on the basketball team but seemed to exist on the periphery of the athletic social circle. "Looks like we got the island of misfit toys," Marcus observed with wry humor as their group settled into a corner of the classroom to plan their project. The foreign exchange program, the minority scholarship, and the bench warmer. Emma looked uncomfortable at the characterization, but David laughed quietly. "At least we'll probably do better research than the group spending their time gossiping instead of working." Sophia found herself genuinely enjoying the collaboration with her fellow outsiders. David brought meticulous attention to detail. Emma contributed passionate insights about the intersection of civil rights and immigration experiences, and Marcus offered perspectives on how historical struggles connected to contemporary social dynamics. Their project planning session revealed that being excluded from the popular groups might actually be an academic advantage. However, the social ramifications of her growing friendship with other marginalized students became apparent during lunch. As Sophia sat with David, Emma, and Marcus at their now regular table near the windows, she noticed Madison's group watching them with increased interest. "Look at her little United Nations club," Ashley's voice carried clearly across the cafeteria, though she maintained the pretense of speaking only to her immediate companions. "So diverse and inclusive. How very progressive of our Chicago transplant to collect all the school's charity cases." Jessica giggled at the observation, adding her own commentary with characteristic cattiness. "She's probably writing her college admissions essays about bridging cultural divides and learning from diverse perspectives. Very trendy." Madison's approach was more calculating than her friend's obvious mockery. "I think it's wonderful that Sophia is reaching out to students who need social support. Very charitable of her to take them under her wing like that. It shows real character." The backhanded compliment was designed to simultaneously insult Sophia's lunch companions while positioning her as someone who associated with lesser students out of pity rather than genuine friendship. It was a sophisticated manipulation that revealed Madison's experience with psychological warfare. Marcus set down his sandwich with deliberate calm, his expression suggesting he had heard similar comments throughout his high school career. You know what I love about small towns? The way everyone's so concerned about everyone else's business really creates that sense of community togetherness. His response drew scattered laughter from nearby tables, and Sophia noticed several students nodding in agreement. Madison's expression tightened slightly, recognizing that her attack had partially backfired by making her group appear petty rather than superior. The week continued with a series of small but persistent provocations designed to test Sophia's reactions and identify potential weaknesses. During PE class, Sophia was consistently chosen last for team activities, despite demonstrating clear athletic ability during warm-up exercises. In English class, Madison made a point of questioning Sophia's interpretations of literature assignments, not with genuine intellectual curiosity, but with the kind of dismissive skepticism designed to undermine confidence. Friday afternoon brought the announcement that would change everything. Prom tickets were going on sale the following Monday, and the theme for this year's dance was a night in Paris. The news sent ripples of excitement through the student body, but Sophia felt a knot of apprehension forming in her stomach as she observed Madison's immediate reaction. "Oh, how perfect," Madison declared to her assembled court during lunch. "A night in Paris, so romantic and sophisticated. Though I suppose some people might find the theme a bit challenging to interpret appropriately." Her gaze swept meaningfully across the cafeteria, lingering on Sophia's table with unmistakable intent. The implication was clear. Prom would become another battlefield in their ongoing social conflict, with significantly higher stakes than daily classroom interactions. After school, Sophia found herself walking through downtown Cedar Valley's small business district while waiting for her mother to finish a meeting at the hospital. The town's main street stretched for only 6 blocks, lined with family-owned shops, a vintage movie theater, and the kind of locally owned restaurants that had been serving the same families for generations. She paused outside Magnolia Bridal, the town's only formal wear shop, where elaborate prom dresses filled the front window display. Through the glass, she could see Madison, Jessica, and Ashley inside with their mothers, presumably selecting gowns for the upcoming dance. The scene looked like something from a magazine spread about small-town American traditions, all perfectly coordinated outfits and animated discussions about colors and styles. Watching them, Sophia realized that prom represented far more than just a school dance in a place like Cedar Valley. It was a culmination of 12 years of social positioning, a final opportunity to cement reputations and settle scores before graduation scattered everyone to different colleges and careers. For Madison and her friends, prom night would be their coronation ceremony, the ultimate validation of their social supremacy. For Sophia, it represented something entirely different, a test of whether she could navigate her new environment without compromising the principles Master Kim had taught her about dignity, respect, and standing up for those who couldn't defend themselves. That evening, as she helped her mother prepare dinner in their new kitchen, Sophia found herself thinking about the choices ahead. She could continue trying to maintain a low profile, attend prom quietly or not at all, and hope to finish out her senior year without major conflict. Or she could recognize that Madison's campaign against her was escalating regardless of her own actions, and prepare accordingly. "You seem thoughtful tonight," Patricia observed as they worked together to prepare stir-fry vegetables. "Is everything going well at school?" Sophia considered how much to share with her mother, who was dealing with her own adjustment challenges as she tried to establish herself in Cedar Valley's medical community. "It's getting more complicated. The social dynamics are more intense than I expected." Patricia nodded with understanding, recognizing the diplomatic way her daughter communicated concerns without causing unnecessary worry. Small towns can be challenging that way. Everyone's more invested in each other's business, for better and worse. Did you face anything like this when you were in high school? Sophia asked, genuinely curious about her mother's experiences. Different challenges but similar principles, Patricia replied thoughtfully. Your grandmother always told me that how you handle pressure reveals your true character. The easy times don't test you. It's the difficult moments that show who you really are. As Sophia went to bed that night, her mother's words echoed in her mind alongside Master Kim's teachings about courage and integrity. She was beginning to understand that her situation at Cedar Valley High wasn't just about surviving high school. Social politics. It was about deciding what kind of person she wanted to be when faced with systematic intimidation and pressure to conform. The weekend passed quietly, but Sophia spent much of it in her room practicing forms and meditation, techniques that Master Kim had taught her for managing stress and maintaining mental clarity. She had a feeling she was going to need both in the weeks ahead. Monday morning would bring prom ticket sales, and with them, the next phase of whatever Madison Williams was planning. Sophia Chun was determined to be ready. Monday morning arrived with the kind of electric anticipation that only came with major school events. Prom ticket sales began during the first period, and by lunchtime, nearly half the junior and senior class had committed to attending a night in Paris. The $75 ticket price was steep for some families in Cedar Valley, but tradition demanded participation from anyone who wanted to maintain their social standing. Sophia stood in line at the main office during her lunch period, having decided that avoiding prom would send the wrong message about her willingness to participate in school activities. Behind her, she could hear Madison's voice discussing elaborate pre-prom plans with several other girls, their conversation carefully orchestrated to be overheard. The Riverside Country Club has the most beautiful ballroom for our after-party, Madison was saying, her tone suggesting casual wealth rather than deliberate exclusion. Daddy reserved it months ago, of course. We'll have professional photographers, a live jazz band, and catering from Le Bernardin in Nashville. It's going to be absolutely magical. Jessica chimed in with practiced enthusiasm. The invitation list is so exclusive this year. Only the most special people get to attend Madison's after-party. It's really the event that matters more than the actual prom. The psychological warfare was sophisticated, establishing a hierarchy where the official school dance became secondary to Madison's private celebration, effectively creating an inner circle and outer circle of prom attendees. Students who couldn't afford country club memberships or weren't deemed worthy of invitation would be relegated to second-class status even among prom-goers. When Sophia reached the front of the line, Mrs. Reynolds smiled warmly as she processed the ticket. Purchase. I'm so glad you decided to attend, dear. Prom is such a wonderful tradition here at Cedar Valley. You'll have a lovely time. As Sophia walked away with her ticket, she passed Madison's group in the hallway. Ashley Morrison made a point of speaking loudly enough for Sophia to hear clearly. I wonder if the new girl understands the dress code expectations for Cedar Valley. Prom, Chicago fashion might be a bit intense for our more traditional celebration. We wouldn't want anyone to feel out of place by overdressing or underdressing for the occasion. The comment was designed to create anxiety about fitting in, while simultaneously suggesting that Sophia might not understand local customs or have appropriate fashion sense. It was the kind of preemptive attack that could undermine confidence weeks before the actual event. Sophia continued walking without responding, but she made a mental note to research local prom traditions and expectations. Master Kim had always emphasized the importance of understanding cultural contexts, even when dealing with people who used cultural knowledge as a weapon rather than a bridge. That afternoon brought an unexpected development during pay class. Coach Martinez had divided the students into teams for a volleyball tournament, and through either coincidence or deliberate manipulation, Sophia found herself on a team with several of Madison's friends, while Madison herself was placed on the opposing side. The game quickly became a showcase for passive-aggressive competition, with Sophia's teammates making subtle efforts to exclude her from plays while Madison's team targeted her with serves and spikes designed to test her athletic abilities. What they discovered was that Sophia's 12 years of martial arts training had given her reflexes, coordination, and competitive instincts that translated remarkably well to volleyball. Her first powerful spike caught everyone off guard, the ball hitting the opposite court with enough force to surprise even Coach Martinez. Her defensive digs and quick reactions at the net demonstrated athletic skills that contradicted the quiet, unassuming image she had cultivated since arriving at Cedar Valley. "Nice shot," Madison called out after a particularly impressive play, her tone carrying just enough edge to suggest that Sophia's display of competence was somehow inappropriate rather than impressive. By the end of the class period, whispers were spreading through the locker room about the new girl's unexpected athletic abilities. Some students seemed impressed, while others appeared suspicious, as if physical competence was somehow threatening to the established social order. Wednesday brought the first direct attack on Sophia's academic reputation. During a P literature class, Mr. Harrison assigned oral presentations on contemporary poetry, with students required to analyze and interpret a poem of their choosing. Sophia selected Maya Angelou's "Still I Rise," drawn to its themes of resilience and dignity in the face of oppression. When her turn came to present, Sophia delivered a thoughtful analysis connecting Angelou's personal experiences to broader themes of overcoming systematic discrimination. Her presentation demonstrated deep understanding of both literary technique and historical context, earning approving nods from Mr. Harrison and engaged questions from several classmates. However, when Madison's turn came immediately after, she had clearly prepared a response designed to undermine Sophia's credibility. Madison's poem selection was T.S. Eliot's The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock, and her analysis focused on themes of alienation and social anxiety in modern urban environments. "I found it interesting that some of us chose poems about struggle and victimhood," Madison said during her conclusion, her gaze settling meaningfully on Sophia, "while others prefer to explore the sophisticated, psychological complexity of individuals grappling with intellectual isolation in cosmopolitan settings. I think our poem choices reveal a lot about our personal worldviews and cultural backgrounds." The subtle dig was brilliantly executed, suggesting that Sophia's choice reflected a victim mentality while positioning Madison's selection as more intellectually sophisticated. Several students nodded in apparent agreement, though David Kim caught Sophia's eye and rolled his own in a gesture of solidarity. After class, Mr. Harrison approached Sophia's desk with a concerned expression. "I hope you don't let other students' competitive dynamics discourage you from sharing your insights. Your analysis of Angelou was perceptive and well-researched." The teacher's private encouragement suggested he had recognized the underlying social conflict playing out in his classroom, but his inability to address it directly highlighted one of the challenges Sophia faced. The attacks against her were sophisticated enough to maintain plausible deniability, making them difficult for authority figures to confront without seeming to take sides in student politics. Thursday brought escalation in the form of social media warfare. Sophia had maintained minimal online presence since arriving in Cedar Valley, but several classmates had tagged her in photos from group projects and school events. She noticed that comments on these photos had begun including subtle digs disguised as friendly observations. "So great to see Sophia participating in Cedar Valley traditions. Hope she's adjusting well to our small-town customs," read one comment from Jessica Parker, the smiling emoji somehow making the message feel more condescending than supportive. Ashley Morrison had contributed her own observations. "Love seeing different perspectives in our classroom discussions. Diversity of thought makes everything more interesting, even when some viewpoints are unique." The online campaign was particularly insidious because it created a permanent record of seemingly positive interactions that carried unmistakable undertones of exclusion and othering. Anyone reading the comments casually would see supportive classmates welcoming a new student, while the actual targets and perpetrators understood the real messages being conveyed. Friday afternoon brought the week's most significant development when Sophia encountered Madison alone for the first time since their initial hallway conversation. She was leaving the library after researching her upcoming history project when she found Madison waiting by the main entrance, apparently having timed the encounter deliberately. "Sophia, I'm glad I caught you," Madison said, her demeanor more serious than usual. "I wanted to talk to you privately about something important." Sophia paused, recognizing that this conversation was likely to be more substantive than their previous public exchanges. "What's on your mind?" Madison glanced around to ensure they wouldn't be overheard, then continued with carefully measured words. "I think you're a smart person, and I respect that you're trying to find your place here. But I'm concerned that you might be misunderstanding some of the social dynamics at Cedar Valley." "In what way?" Sophia asked, though she suspected she knew where this was heading. "This school has a certain ecosystem," Madison explained, her tone taking on the quality of someone explaining obvious facts to a child. "People have roles to play, relationships that have developed over years, expectations that keep things running smoothly. When someone new arrives and starts disrupting those patterns, it can create problems for everyone." Sophia studied Madison's expression, noting the careful way she had framed her warning to sound like helpful advice rather than a threat. "I'm not trying to disrupt anything. I'm just trying to get an education and treat people with respect." Madison's smile didn't reach her eyes as she responded. "Of course, and that's admirable. But sometimes good intentions can have unintended consequences. Take prom, for example. It's a very special tradition here, and people have certain expectations about how the evening should unfold. It would be unfortunate if someone accidentally did something that made other students uncomfortable or disrupted the celebration." The threat was elegantly delivered but unmistakable. Madison was warning Sophia that prom night would become a battleground if she didn't voluntarily withdraw from school social activities and accept a subordinate position in the hierarchy. "I appreciate your concern," Sophia replied with careful politeness. "I'll certainly keep your advice in mind as I continue getting to know Cedar Valley's traditions." As Madison walked away, Sophia realized that the preliminary skirmishes were over. Madison had issued a direct ultimatum disguised as friendly guidance, and Sophia's response, refusing to back down while maintaining diplomatic courtesy, had essentially declared war. That evening, as Sophia practiced her forms in the garage that her parents had cleared for her training space, she reflected on the week's developments. Each encounter with Madison and her allies had been a test, designed to identify weaknesses and pressure points that could be exploited in future conflicts. What Madison didn't understand was that 12 years of martial arts training had taught Sophia to remain calm under pressure, to think strategically rather than react emotionally, and to recognize when someone was trying to intimidate her into submission. The real confrontation was still weeks away, but the battle lines had been drawn. Sophia Chun was about to discover whether everything Master Kim had taught her about courage, integrity, and standing up for what was right would be enough to survive the social warfare of Cedar Valley High School's prom night. The following week brought an unexpected twist that would reshape the dynamics leading up to prom night. Monday morning started with news that sent ripples through Cedar Valley High's social ecosystem. Tyler Brooks, the star quarterback and Madison's on-again, off-again boyfriend, had asked Sophia to be his prom date. The invitation came during second period chemistry class, where Tyler approached Sophia's lab station with the kind of confident swagger that had made him the most sought-after date in school. At 6'3" with sandy brown hair and the easy charm that came from a lifetime of being the center of attention, Tyler had never faced rejection from any girl he pursued. "Hey, Sophia," he said, leaning casually against her lab bench while other students pretended not to eavesdrop on the conversation. "I was wondering if you'd like to go to prom with me. I know it's kind of last minute, but I think we'd have a great time together." The offer caught Sophia completely off guard, not just because of Tyler's popularity, but because everyone knew he and Madison had attended every major school event together since sophomore year. Their relationship was as much a part of Cedar Valley High's social landscape as homecoming games and graduation ceremonies. "That's very flattering, Tyler," Sophia replied carefully, aware that her response would be analyzed and dissected by every student within earshot. "Can I think about it and get back to you?" Tyler's smile widened, clearly interpreting her request for time as maidenly modesty rather than strategic thinking. "Of course. Take all the time you need. Just don't keep me waiting too long. I'm pretty sure half the school would kill for this opportunity." As Tyler walked away, Sophia caught David Kim's expression of amazement from across the classroom. The social implications of Tyler's invitation were staggering, representing either a genuine romantic interest or a calculated move in the ongoing power struggle between Madison and Sophia. By lunchtime, news of Tyler's invitation had spread throughout the school with the speed that only truly scandalous gossip could achieve. The cafeteria buzzed with excited conversations as students debated the meaning behind Tyler's unexpected choice and speculated about Madison's reaction. Madison herself appeared remarkably composed when Sophia saw her holding court at her usual table, surrounded by friends offering comfort and support. Her smile seemed perfectly natural, her laughter appropriately timed, and her body language suggested complete confidence in her social position. Only someone trained to observe subtle signs of stress might have noticed the slight tension in her shoulders or the way her fingers drummed against her water bottle. "It's actually quite sweet," Madison was saying to her assembled audience, her voice carrying clearly across the nearby tables. "Tyler's always been drawn to charity cases. Remember when he tutored that struggling math student last year? Or when he helped organize the fundraiser for the family that lost their house in the fire? He has such a generous heart." The characterization was brilliant in its cruelty, framing Tyler's invitation not as a romantic interest in Sophia, but as an act of pity for a social outcast. It allowed Madison to maintain her dignity while simultaneously diminishing Sophia's worth and suggesting that Tyler's interest was temporary and philanthropic rather than genuine. Jessica Parker nodded enthusiastically at Madison's interpretation. "That makes so much sense. Tyler's probably just trying to make sure the new girl doesn't feel left out at prom. He's always been thoughtful that way." Ashley Morrison added her own spin with characteristic sharpness. "I heard her family has money, so at least she can afford a decent dress. It would be embarrassing for Tyler if his charity date showed up looking inappropriate." The conversation was clearly staged for Sophia's benefit, designed to undermine any confidence she might gain from Tyler's invitation while simultaneously explaining away the apparent defection of Madison's longtime boyfriend. It was psychological warfare of the highest order, attacking Sophia's self-worth while protecting Madison's reputation. However, the invitation had created unexpected complications beyond just social dynamics. During sixth period government class, Sophia found herself paired with Tyler for a debate assignment on constitutional interpretation. Working closely with him revealed personality traits that complicated her understanding of his motivations. Tyler proved to be more intellectually curious than his jock stereotype suggested, asking thoughtful questions about Sophia's perspectives on civil liberties and federal versus state power. His comments during their preparation showed genuine interest in her opinions, rather than the patronizing attention she might have expected from someone supposedly asking her to prom out of pity. "You know, you're really different from most people here. Tyler said as they worked through their debate strategy. Most kids at Cedar Valley have never lived anywhere else, never experienced different ways of thinking about things. Your insights about urban versus rural political priorities are fascinating. The comment seemed genuine rather than calculated, suggesting that Tyler's interest might be more complex than Madison's dismissive interpretation implied. This possibility created a dilemma for Sophia, who had to consider whether accepting Tyler's invitation would represent a genuine social opportunity or simply another form of manipulation in Madison's campaign against her. That afternoon brought an unexpected ally in the form of Mrs. Henderson, the school's guidance counselor and a Cedar Valley High alumna who had returned to work at her former school after completing her graduate studies. Mrs. Henderson requested a meeting with Sophia during her study hall period, ostensibly to check on her academic and social adjustment to Cedar Valley. "How are you settling in, dear?" Mrs. Henderson asked as Sophia settled into the comfortable chair across from her desk. The guidance office was decorated with motivational posters and college recruitment materials, creating an atmosphere of academic aspiration and support. "It's been an adjustment," Sophia replied honestly. "The academic standards are high, and the social dynamics are more complex than I expected." Mrs. Henderson nodded with understanding, her expression suggesting she was aware of more than she initially let on. Small schools can be challenging that way. When everyone knows everyone else's business, social relationships become more intense and sometimes more difficult to navigate. She paused, seeming to weigh her words carefully before continuing. "I've heard through the teacher network that you're an exceptional student with strong character. I've also heard that some students are finding your presence disruptive to established patterns." The diplomatic phrasing indicated that Mrs. Henderson was aware of the conflict between Sophia and Madison, but couldn't address it directly without compromising her professional neutrality. However, her next comment suggested she was willing to provide subtle support. "I want you to know that my office is always available if you need someone to talk through any challenges you're facing. Sometimes it helps to have an adult perspective on teenage social dynamics, especially when those dynamics become intense." The conversation provided Sophia with valuable information. At least some adults in the school were aware of what was happening and were willing to offer support if the situation escalated beyond students' ability to handle independently. Wednesday brought the most significant development yet when Emma Rodriguez approached Sophia during lunch with information that changed everything about the prom situation. "I need to tell you something important," Emma said quietly, glancing around to ensure they wouldn't be overheard. "My cousin works part-time at Magnolia Bridal, and she overheard something while Madison and her friends were shopping for prom dresses." Sophia set down her sandwich, recognizing the serious tone in Emma's voice. "What kind of something?" "They're planning to do something to embarrass you at prom," Emma continued, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know all the details, but Madison was talking about teaching you a lesson about knowing your place. She mentioned something about making sure everyone understands what happens to outsiders who don't respect Cedar Valley traditions." The information confirmed Sophia's suspicions that Madison's campaign was building toward a dramatic confrontation at prom, but it also provided crucial advance warning that could help her prepare for whatever was being planned. "Did your cousin hear anything specific about what they're planning?" Sophia asked. Emma shook her head. "Just that it's supposed to happen during the dance itself, something public that will humiliate you in front of the entire school. Madison wants it to be memorable, the kind of thing people will still be talking about at the 10-year reunion." The intelligence provided by Emma's cousin created a strategic dilemma for Sophia. She could avoid the trap entirely by declining Tyler's invitation and skipping prom altogether, effectively conceding victory to Madison and accepting her designated position as a social outcast. Alternatively, she could attend prom knowing that Madison was planning some form of public humiliation, essentially walking into an ambush while hoping her preparation would be sufficient to handle whatever was thrown at her. That evening, Sophia spent extra time in her makeshift training space, working through forms and practicing breathing exercises that Master Kim had taught her for managing stress and maintaining focus under pressure. The physical activity helped clear her mind and reminded her of the principles that had guided her martial arts training. Courage wasn't the absence of fear, but the decision to do what was right despite being afraid. Thursday brought Tyler's follow-up conversation, where he sought her answer to his prom invitation. They met in the library during her free period, away from the constant scrutiny of their classmates. "Have you had a chance to think about prom?" Tyler asked, his expression suggesting genuine nervousness about her potential rejection. Sophia studied his face, looking for signs that his invitation was part of Madison's elaborate scheme rather than genuine interest. What she saw was a 17-year-old boy who seemed sincerely interested in getting to know her better, regardless of whatever social pressures might be influencing his choices. "I'd love to go with you," she said finally, making the decision that would set the stage for whatever confrontation awaited at Cedar Valley High's night in Paris. Tyler's smile was brilliant and apparently genuine, suggesting that whatever else might happen at prom, at least one person was looking forward to spending the evening with her for honest reasons. As Sophia walked home that afternoon, she reflected on Master Kim's teachings about facing challenges with courage and integrity. Prom night was shaping up to be the ultimate test of everything she had learned about standing up for herself while remaining true to her principles. The battle lines were drawn, the major players had chosen their sides, and the stage was set for a confrontation that would determine not just Sophia's place in Cedar Valley High's social hierarchy, but her own understanding of who she was and what she stood for when faced with systematic intimidation and pressure to conform. With 3 weeks remaining until prom night, Cedar Valley High transformed into a buzzing hive of preparation and anticipation. The hallways filled with discussions of dress fittings, limousine reservations, and elaborate dinner plans, while underlying currents of social tension continued to build toward what everyone sensed would be a memorable evening. Sophia's acceptance of Tyler's invitation had sent shockwaves through the school's established social order, creating ripple effects that extended far beyond her immediate circle. Students who had previously ignored her existence now watched her movements with keen interest, while others began approaching her with a mixture of curiosity and calculated friendliness that suggested they were hedging their social bets. Most immediate consequence came during Monday's lunch period, when Brittany Walsh, Connor Walsh's younger sister and a junior who had always existed on the periphery of Madison's inner circle, made an unexpected overture to Sophia's table. "Mind if I sit here?" Brittany asked, her voice carrying the nervous energy of someone making a risky social gamble. Without waiting for an answer, she settled into the empty chair next to Emma Rodriguez and began unpacking her lunch with deliberate casualness. David Kim raised an eyebrow at the unexpected addition to their group. "This is new. Usually people avoid our table like we're carrying something contagious." Brittany laughed nervously, glancing around the cafeteria to see who might be watching her defection from the established social order. "Maybe I'm tired of the same old conversations about who's dating whom and which designer made whose dress. Your group actually talks about interesting things." The comment revealed more than Brittany probably intended, suggesting that Madison's social dominance was beginning to show cracks as other students grew weary of the constant drama and performance required to maintain their positions in the hierarchy. Sophia recognized the significance of this development. When lieutenants began abandoning ship, it usually meant the captain was losing control. Marcus Thompson welcomed Brittany with characteristic humor. "Welcome to the island of misfit toys. Population growing. We were just discussing whether Tyler Brooks actually has hidden depths, or if he's just really good at pretending to be thoughtful when he wants something." "Tyler's not as shallow as people think," Brittany said, surprising everyone with her defense of the quarterback. "He's actually pretty smart when he's not performing for an audience. My brother says Tyler's been getting tired of some of the stuff Madison expects him to do to maintain their image as the perfect couple." This intelligence provided valuable insight into the dynamics between Tyler and Madison, suggesting that his invitation to Sophia might represent genuine rebellion against Madison's control rather than participation in her schemes. However, it also meant that Tyler was potentially caught between competing loyalties, which could complicate the situation further. Tuesday brought an unexpected encounter when Sophia arrived at her locker to find a beautifully wrapped package waiting inside, along with a handwritten note on expensive stationery. The gift was clearly from someone with both money and sophisticated taste. Given the elegant presentation and high-quality materials, the note read, "Sophia, I thought you might enjoy this book of poetry by contemporary Asian American writers. I've been meaning to share it with someone who would appreciate the complexity of their cultural perspectives. Looking forward to our evening together. Tyler." Inside the package was a first-edition collection of poems by writers like Ocean Vuong and Jenny Z, with Tyler's thoughtful annotations in the margins and personal reflections on themes that resonated with his own experiences as a small-town student preparing for college in larger cities. The gift demonstrated both intellectual sophistication and genuine consideration for Sophia's interests, suggesting his attention to their conversations had been more than superficial politeness. However, the gesture didn't go unnoticed by Madison's surveillance network. During third-period English class, Ashley Morrison made a point of commenting on the book Sophia was reading during their independent study time. "Oh, how lovely that someone gave you such a thoughtful gift," Ashley said with the kind of exaggerated sweetness that immediately put everyone on alert. "Tyler's always been so generous with his attention to students who need extra encouragement. It's one of his most admirable qualities." The comment was designed to diminish the gift by framing it as patronizing charity rather than genuine romantic interest, but it also revealed that Madison's network was monitoring Sophia's interactions with Tyler more closely than ever. The surveillance suggested that Madison viewed Tyler's apparent defection as a serious threat to her social position rather than a temporary inconvenience. Wednesday brought the week's most significant development when Mrs. Henderson called Sophia to her office for what appeared to be a routine check-in, but proved to be something much more substantial. "I wanted to update you on some information that's come to my attention," Mrs. Henderson said, her tone more serious than their previous conversation. "I've been hearing rumors about potential incidents planned for prom night, and I want to make sure you're aware that the administration takes student safety very seriously." The warning was diplomatically phrased but unmistakably clear. School officials were aware that something was being planned and were prepared to intervene if necessary. However, Mrs. Henderson's next comments revealed the limitations of adult supervision in preventing teenage social warfare. "Unfortunately, much of what I'm hearing involves off-campus activities and private social gatherings where our direct authority is limited," she continued. "The best protection I can offer is information and support. If you're planning to attend prom and any after-parties, I strongly encourage you to stay close to trusted friends and avoid situations where you might be isolated or vulnerable." The guidance counselor's advice confirmed what Emma's cousin had reported. Madison's plan involved the prom itself and possibly the exclusive after-party at the country club, venues where adult supervision would be minimal and social dynamics would be largely self-policing. "Is there anything specific I should be watching for?" Sophia asked, appreciating Mrs. Henderson's willingness to share information while maintaining professional boundaries. Mrs. Henderson considered her words carefully before responding. "In my experience, students planning to embarrass or humiliate someone publicly usually rely on catching their target off guard, often by manipulating social situations or exploiting moments of vulnerability. The best defense is preparation and awareness, along with allies who can provide support when needed. Thursday's lunch period brought an unexpected alliance when Charlotte Martinez, Emma's older sister and the student body vice president, approached their table with information that would prove crucial for prom night preparation. "Emma told me what you've been dealing with," Charlotte said without preamble, settling into an empty chair with the confidence of someone accustomed to leadership roles. "I've been watching the situation develop, and I think you should know that not everyone supports Madison's campaign against you." Charlotte's position in student government gave her access to information and social networks that extended beyond typical high school cliques. Her next revelation provided valuable intelligence about the scope of Madison's planning. "Madison approached me last week about using her influence to get permission for some special activities during prom. Things like additional photography access and permission to make announcements during the dance," Charlotte continued. "She claimed it was for celebrating graduating seniors, but the timing and specifics made me suspicious. The information suggested that Madison's plan involved some form of public spectacle during the official prom festivities, possibly including photography or videography to ensure maximum distribution and lasting humiliation." However, Charlotte's refusal to cooperate had apparently forced Madison to develop alternative strategies. "I've also heard that several students are planning to record everything that happens at prom with their phones," Charlotte added. "Not just normal prom photos, but specifically looking for drama or confrontations they can share on social media. You should assume that anything that happens will be captured and broadcast." This intelligence highlighted the modern dimension of teenage social warfare, where humiliation could be amplified and perpetuated through digital platforms long after the original incident. However, it also suggested that any response to Madison's planned attack would be equally visible and permanent. Friday brought the most revealing conversation yet when Tyler approached Sophia after their government class debate, requesting a private discussion about prom night expectations and potential complications. "I need to be honest with you about something," Tyler said as they walked toward the library's quiet study area. "Madison's been trying to get information about our prom plans, and some of her questions have been pretty specific about timing and locations." His willingness to share this information demonstrated loyalty to Sophia over Madison, but it also confirmed that their relationship had become a battleground in the larger social conflict. Tyler's next revelation provided crucial insight into Madison's strategic thinking. "She asked me whether we're planning to attend her after-party at the country club, and when I said probably not, she seemed almost relieved," Tyler continued. "That made me think maybe whatever she's planning is supposed to happen during the official prom, not afterward." The intelligence aligned with everything else Sophia had learned about Madison's plans, suggesting a public confrontation during the school-sponsored dance rather than the private after-party, where Madison's control would be absolute. "There's something else," Tyler added, his expression growing more serious. "Madison's been telling people that she's planning something special for prom night, something that will remind everyone why she's been the queen of this school for 4 years. She's being secretive about details, but she's definitely building anticipation for some kind of dramatic moment." As Friday afternoon turned into evening, Sophia reflected on everything she had learned during the week. Madison's plan was clearly sophisticated and multi-layered, involving public humiliation during prom itself, potential recording and distribution through social media, and strategic timing designed to maximize impact and minimize the possibility of effective response. However, the week had also revealed unexpected sources of support and information that could help Sophia prepare for whatever was coming. Mrs. Henderson's warnings, Charlotte's intelligence, and Tyler's loyalty provided advantages that Madison probably hadn't anticipated when formulating her original strategy. That evening, as Sophia practiced forms in her garage training space, she reflected on Master Kim's teachings about preparation and mental readiness. "The mind of a warrior," he had often said, "is not one that seeks conflict, but one that is prepared to face conflict with courage and wisdom when it cannot be avoided." With 2 weeks remaining until prom night, Sophia Chun was about to discover whether 12 years of martial arts training, combined with careful planning and unexpected allies, would be enough to survive the most sophisticated campaign of psychological and social warfare she had ever encountered. The countdown to a night in Paris had begun, and everyone involved understood that the evening would determine not just individual reputations, but the social order that would define Cedar Valley High. School's remaining weeks before graduation scattered them all to different futures. The final week before prom arrived with an intensity that seemed to electrify every corner of Cedar Valley High School. Hallways buzzed with last-minute preparations as students finalized their plans for what many considered the most important social event of their high school careers. For Sophia Chun, however, the approaching Saturday night felt less like a celebration and more like the culmination of a carefully orchestrated campaign designed to destroy her social standing once and for all. Monday morning brought an unexpected escalation when Sophia discovered that someone had broken into her locker over the weekend. Nothing appeared to be stolen, but her belongings had been carefully searched and reorganized in a way that sent a clear message: nowhere was safe from Madison's influence. The violation felt personal and invasive, designed to create anxiety and paranoia rather than cause actual damage. The incident was reported to Principal Davidson, but without evidence of theft or obvious vandalism, there was little the administration could do beyond changing Sophia's locker combination and increasing security patrols. Mrs. Henderson's concerned expression during their brief meeting suggested she understood the psychological warfare implications. But the limitations of institutional response to subtle intimidation were becoming increasingly apparent. During second-period chemistry, Sophia noticed that Madison had begun wearing her prom dress shopping receipts and planning materials as accessories, casually leaving them visible on her desk, where other students couldn't help but notice the astronomical amounts being spent on her Night in Paris ensemble. The display was designed to highlight the economic disparity between Madison's family resources and those of less wealthy students, reinforcing social hierarchies through conspicuous consumption. $1,200 for a dress, David Kim observed quietly as they worked on their titration experiment. "That's more than my family spends on groceries in 3 months. The psychological pressure these people create through money alone is incredible." Sophia appreciated David's analytical perspective on the social dynamics they were witnessing. His outsider's view of Cedar Valley's wealth-based hierarchies helped her understand that Madison's campaign relied heavily on economic intimidation, alongside social manipulation. Tuesday brought the most disturbing development yet when Emma Rodriguez approached Sophia during lunch with information that changed everything about the final preparations for prom night. "My cousin heard more details about Madison's planning," Emma said in a voice barely above a whisper, glancing around nervously to ensure they wouldn't be overheard. "It's worse than we thought." Sophia set down her sandwich, recognizing the fear in Emma's expression. "What's worse?" "Madison's been telling people that she has proof you've been lying about your background. Something about your family's reason for leaving Chicago and your father's medical career," Emma continued, her words tumbling out quickly as if saying, "Them faster would make them less frightening. She claims she's going to expose the truth about your family during prom, in front of everyone." The revelation sent a chill down Sophia's spine, not because there was truth to Madison's claims, but because the mere suggestion of family scandal could be devastating regardless of its accuracy. In a small town like Cedar Valley, reputation was everything, and the implication that her father might have ethical or professional problems could destroy both her family's standing and her mother's career at the hospital. "Does your cousin know what kind of proof Madison claims to have?" Sophia asked, though she suspected the answer would be either fabricated evidence or twisted interpretations of legitimate information. Emma shook her head. Just that Madison's been making phone calls to Chicago, trying to dig up information about your family's history. She's been telling people she has connections who can find out the real story behind why you moved here. The intelligence suggested that Madison's final attack would involve character assassination on a scale that extended beyond typical high school social warfare. By targeting Sophia's family rather than just her personal reputation, Madison was escalating the conflict to a level that could have serious real-world consequences for people who had done nothing to deserve such treatment. Wednesday brought an unexpected ally in the form of Coach Martinez, who requested that Sophia stay after pay class for a private conversation. The athletic department had apparently been monitoring the social tensions surrounding prom night, and Coach Martinez had insights that proved valuable for understanding the broader dynamics at play. "I've been teaching here for 15 years," Coach Martinez said as they sat in her office overlooking the gymnasium. "I've seen this kind of social warfare before, and I want you to know that it usually says more about the instigator than the target." The coach's next revelation provided crucial context for understanding Madison's motivations and methods. Madison Williams has been the undisputed queen of this school since freshman year, but that kind of dominance requires constant maintenance. When someone new arrives who threatens that position through intelligence, character, or simple refusal to be intimidated, the response is often disproportionate and desperate. Coach Martinez paused, seeming to weigh her words carefully before continuing. "I also want you to know that several teachers have been discussing the situation informally. We can't intervene in student social conflicts directly, but we're all planning to be very present and observant during prom night. Sometimes adult visibility is enough to prevent the worst behavior." The promise of increased adult supervision provided some comfort, though Sophia recognized that the most sophisticated psychological attacks could be executed even under watchful eyes. However, knowing that sympathetic adults would be present created opportunities for seeking help if the situation escalated beyond her ability to handle independently. Thursday's lunch period brought the week's most significant development when Tyler Brooks approached Sophia's table with information that revealed the true scope of Madison's planning for prom night. "I need to tell you something important," Tyler said, his expression more serious than Sophia had ever seen it. "Madison cornered me yesterday after football practice and tried to get me to cooperate with her plan for Saturday night." Sophia felt her stomach clench with apprehension. "What kind of cooperation?" "She wanted me to participate in humiliating you publicly during prom," Tyler continued, his voice carrying a mixture of anger and disgust. "She laid out this elaborate scheme involving fake evidence about your family, a staged confrontation during the dance, and coordination with her friends to record everything for social media distribution." The revelation confirmed Sophia's worst fears about the sophistication and maliciousness of Madison's planning. However, Tyler's next words provided hope that the scheme might not unfold as smoothly as Madison anticipated. "I told her absolutely not, and I made it clear that if she goes through with this plan, she'd be doing it without any support from me," Tyler said firmly. "I also warned her that targeting your family crosses a line that could have legal consequences, not just social ones." The intelligence Tyler provided included specific details about timing and methods that would prove crucial for Sophia's preparation. Madison planned to make her accusations during the prom king and queen announcement ceremony, when everyone's attention would be focused on the stage and recording devices would already be active for official photography. She's planning to request permission to make a special announcement about school integrity during the ceremony, Tyler explained. She's going to claim that someone has been deceiving the school community about their background and that the truth needs to be revealed for everyone's protection. The scheme was diabolically clever, using the formal structure of prom night traditions to create a platform for character assassination while making it appear that Madison was acting in the school's best interests rather than pursuing personal vengeance. Friday brought the final piece of preparation when Charlotte Martinez approached Sophia with a proposal that could change the entire dynamic of Saturday night's confrontation. "I've been thinking about Madison's planning, and I have an idea that might help," Charlotte said during their study hall period. "What if we turn her own tactics against her?" Charlotte's proposal was both simple and brilliant. Instead of waiting passively for Madison's attack, they would take control of the narrative by addressing the situation proactively. Using Charlotte's position in student government, they could request their own time during the prom ceremony to speak about the importance of treating newcomers with respect and dignity. If Madison tries to make her accusations after you've already spoken about the challenges of being new at Cedar Valley, it will look petty and vindictive rather than principled, Charlotte explained. Public opinion is crucial in these situations, and whoever controls the narrative usually wins. The strategy appealed to Sophia's martial arts training, which emphasized taking initiative rather than waiting defensively for attacks. However, it also represented a significant risk, as speaking publicly would make her a more visible target and could backfire if Madison's fabricated evidence appeared convincing. Friday afternoon brought one final conversation with Mrs. Henderson, who provided both encouragement and practical advice for navigating whatever challenges Saturday night might bring. "I want you to know that several staff members will be present at prom as chaperones, and we've all been briefed on the potential for social conflicts," Mrs. Henderson said. "While we can't prevent teenage drama entirely, we can ensure that any situation that becomes threatening or harmful will be addressed immediately." The guidance counselor's final words proved prophetic. "Remember that how you handle adversity reveals your true character. Whatever happens tomorrow night, stay true to your values and don't let other people's behavior change who you are." As Friday evening turned into Saturday morning, Sophia spent time in her garage training space, working through forms and meditation exercises that Master Kim had taught her for managing pre-competition nerves. The physical activity helped center her mind and reminded her of the principles that had guided her martial arts journey: courage, integrity, and the responsibility to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. Saturday afternoon brought the final preparations as Sophia carefully selected her prom dress, an elegant navy blue gown that struck the perfect balance between sophistication and practicality. The dress was beautiful enough to hold its own against Cedar Valley's fashion competition, while allowing for full range of movement if physical confrontation became necessary. As she prepared for what promised to be the most challenging evening of her high school career, Sophia reflected on everything that had led to this moment. Madison Williams had orchestrated a sophisticated campaign designed to destroy her reputation and drive her from Cedar Valley's social ecosystem. However, Sophia had also discovered unexpected allies, gained valuable intelligence about her opponent's plans, and developed strategies that could turn the evening's confrontation to her advantage. In a few hours, Cedar Valley High School's night in Paris would begin, and with it, the ultimate test of everything Master Kim had taught her about facing adversity with courage, wisdom, and unshakable integrity. The stage was set for a confrontation that would determine not just individual reputations, but the kind of community Cedar Valley High School would become in its final weeks before graduation. Saturday evening arrived with the kind of crisp spring air that made everything feel charged with possibility. The Cedar Valley High School gymnasium had been transformed into an elegant Parisian fantasy, complete with twinkling lights, artificial cherry blossoms, and carefully positioned Eiffel Tower replicas. Students began arriving at 7 o'clock, their formal attire creating a sea of silk, satin, and carefully coordinated colors that represented months of planning and anticipation. Sophia arrived with Tyler at 7:30, stepping out of his family's black BMW into the warm glow of the school's main entrance. Her navy blue gown drew appreciative glances from other students, its elegant simplicity standing out among the more elaborate designs that dominated the evening's fashion landscape. Tyler looked handsome in his classic black tuxedo, and his genuine smile as he offered her his arm suggested that whatever else happened tonight, at least one person was genuinely happy to be there with her. The gymnasium's transformation was impressive, creating an atmosphere that felt both magical and sophisticated. Professional lighting cast everything in a warm, golden glow that made even the most mundane high school interactions feel cinematic. A live jazz quartet played softly near the entrance, while couples posed for formal photographs against backdrops designed to evoke Parisian landmarks. Madison Williams made her entrance 15 minutes later, arriving in a white limousine with Jessica and Ashley flanking her like royal attendants. Her emerald green gown was stunning and obviously expensive, its designer cut and intricate beadwork creating an ensemble that demanded attention from every person in the room. She moved through the crowd with the practiced grace of someone who had been preparing for this moment her entire high school career. The early part of the evening proceeded according to traditional prom protocols, with dinner served in the adjacent cafeteria and dancing beginning around 8:30. Sophia found herself genuinely enjoying Tyler's company as they navigated the social interactions and formal rituals that define Cedar Valley's prom traditions. His conversation was engaging, and his attention felt authentic rather than performative. However, she remained hyper-aware of Madison's movements throughout the gymnasium, noting how the queen bee of Cedar Valley High positioned herself strategically to maximize her visibility while keeping Sophia within her line of sight. Madison's interactions with other students carried an undercurrent of anticipation, as if she was building toward something significant that would justify all the preparation and positioning. At 9:15, Principal Davidson stepped onto the condo, the small stage that had been erected for the evening's formal ceremonies. The jazz quartet finished their current song, and the gymnasium's chatter died down as students gathered around the stage for the traditional prom king and queen announcement. "Ladies and gentlemen," Principal Davidson began, his voice carrying clearly through the gymnasium's sound system, "we've reached one of the evening's most anticipated moments. But before we announce this year's prom royalty, we have a special presentation from one of our outstanding student leaders." Charlotte Martinez appeared at the edge of the stage, having implemented her strategic plan to speak before Madison could launch her attack. Dressed in an elegant purple gown that complemented her position as student body vice president, Charlotte commanded attention as she approached the microphone. "Thank you, Principal Davidson," Charlotte began, her voice steady and confident despite the high stakes of the moment. "I wanted to take this opportunity to talk about something that makes Cedar Valley High School special: our ability to welcome new members into our community with kindness and respect." The speech was brilliantly constructed, addressing themes of inclusion and community values without directly referencing the conflict between Sophia and Madison. Charlotte spoke about the challenges faced by students who moved to Cedar Valley from other places, the importance of judging people by their character rather than their origins, and the school's tradition of supporting all students regardless of their family backgrounds or economic circumstances. Tonight, as we celebrate our achievements and look toward our futures, let's remember that our strength comes from treating each other with dignity and compassion, Charlotte concluded. Cedar Valley High School is at its best when we lift each other up rather than tearing each other down. The applause was enthusiastic and genuine, with many students nodding in agreement with Charlotte's message. More importantly, her speech had established a framework that would make Madison's planned character assassination appear petty and vindictive rather than principled and necessary. Madison's expression during Charlotte's presentation revealed her recognition that her strategy had been compromised. However, she had invested too much in her planned confrontation to abandon it entirely. As Charlotte left the stage and Principal Davidson prepared to announce the prom court, Madison made her move. "Principal Davidson," Madison called out, stepping forward with the confidence of someone accustomed to commanding attention. "I'd like to request a moment to address something important about school integrity and honesty." The gymnasium fell silent as students sensed that the evening's real drama was about to begin. Madison's request put Principal Davidson in a difficult position. Denying it would appear heavy-handed, while granting it would provide a platform for whatever Madison had planned. "Very well, Miss Williams," Principal Davidson said after a moment's hesitation. "Please keep your comments brief so we can proceed with the ceremony." Madison approached the microphone with theatrical grace, her emerald gown catching the stage lights as she positioned herself to address the entire assembled student body. When she spoke, her voice carried the practiced authority of someone who had never doubted her right to judge others. "Thank you, Principal Davidson. I stand before you tonight because I believe our school community deserves to know the truth about certain individuals who have been deceiving us about their backgrounds and motivations." The attack was beginning exactly as Tyler had warned, with Madison positioning herself as a protector of school integrity rather than a vindictive social competitor. However, her next words revealed the weakness in her fabricated case. "Some people have come to our school claiming their families moved here for professional opportunities, when the reality is far more troubling." Madison continued, her gaze settling directly on Sophia. "I have evidence that certain students' families left their previous communities under questionable circumstances, possibly involving professional misconduct or ethical violations." The accusation was serious but deliberately vague, relying on implication and innuendo rather than specific facts. Madison clearly hoped that the mere suggestion of scandal would be enough to destroy Sophia's reputation. Regardless of whether any actual evidence existed, Sophia felt the familiar calm settling over her mind as she recognized that the moment for action had arrived. 12 years of martial arts training had taught her to remain centered under pressure, and Master Kim's lessons about facing adversity with courage and integrity guided her response. "Madison," Sophia said, stepping forward so her voice would carry clearly throughout the gymnasium, "if you have specific accusations to make, I think everyone deserves to hear actual facts rather than vague implications." The direct challenge caught Madison off guard, as she had clearly expected Sophia to remain silent or respond defensively. The confident tone of Sophia's response suggested someone who had nothing to hide rather than someone desperate to conceal shameful secrets. "I don't think this is the appropriate venue for personal attacks," Tyler said, moving to stand beside Sophia in a gesture of solidarity that surprised many students who had expected him to remain neutral. Madison's face flushed with anger at Tyler's public defection, but she pressed forward with her planned assault. "Since you're demanding specifics, let me share what I've discovered about why your family really left Chicago." However, as Madison began to speak, her fabricated evidence immediately fell apart under scrutiny. Her claims about Dr. Chun's supposed professional problems were easily contradicted by public records of his achievements and the prestigious position he had accepted at Cedar Valley Medical Center. Her suggestions about financial impropriety were undermined by the obvious quality of the Chun family's possessions and lifestyle. Most damaging to Madison's credibility was her inability to provide any concrete evidence to support her accusations. When pressed for documentation or sources, she could only offer vague references to reliable contacts and confidential information that conveniently couldn't be verified. The assembled students began to recognize Madison's attack for what it was: a desperate attempt to destroy someone's reputation through fabricated scandal rather than legitimate concern for school integrity. Murmurs of disapproval began rippling through the crowd as Madison's accusations became increasingly wild and unsupported. "That's enough," Principal Davidson said firmly, stepping back to the microphone. "This ceremony is about celebrating our students' achievements, not airing personal grievances. Miss Williams, please return to your seat so we can proceed with the prom court announcement." Madison's public humiliation was complete. Her carefully planned character assassination had backfired spectacularly, revealing her as someone willing to fabricate serious accusations for personal gain, rather than a principled defender of school values. The social capital she had accumulated over 4 years was evaporating in real time as students witnessed her true character. However, Madison's response to this defeat revealed the depth of her desperation and vindictiveness. As she walked away from the microphone, she deliberately collided with Sophia, accidentally spilling her drink across the front of Sophia's navy blue gown. "Oops," Madison said with false sweetness. "How clumsy of me. I hope that stain comes out." The deliberately provocative act was designed to humiliate Sophia physically after the verbal assault had failed. In Madison's calculation, ruining Sophia's dress would provide the satisfying destruction she had been seeking throughout their conflict. What Madison didn't anticipate was that her physical aggression would trigger the defensive instincts that Master Kim had spent 12 years developing in his student. When Madison reached out to help clean up the spilled drink, actually intending to make the damage worse, Sophia's training took over. The movement was fluid and precise, a simple redirection technique that used Madison's own momentum against her. As Madison leaned forward with false concern, Sophia stepped slightly to the side and guided Madison's reaching hand past its intended target. The result was that Madison found herself stumbling forward, her own drink spilling across her emerald green gown in a pattern that was far more dramatic and visible than the small stain on Sophia's dress. The gymnasium erupted in gasps and scattered laughter as Madison Williams, the undisputed queen of Cedar Valley High School, stood dripping in her own spilled beverage while her intended victim remained poised and elegant, despite the attack she had just deflected. "Oh my," Sophia said with perfectly innocent concern. "How clumsy. I hope that stain comes out." The reversal was so complete and so perfectly executed that even Madison's closest allies couldn't help but recognize the poetic justice of the moment. Madison's elaborate dress, which had cost more than many families' monthly income, was now stained and ruined, while Sophia's more modest gown showed only minor damage that actually enhanced rather than detracted from her overall appearance. Principal Davidson quickly restored order and proceeded with the prom court announcement, but the real drama of the evening was over. Madison's campaign of psychological warfare had ended in spectacular failure, revealing her true character while demonstrating Sophia's grace under pressure. The remainder of the evening proceeded peacefully, with students approaching Sophia throughout the night to express their admiration for how she had handled Madison's attacks. Tyler remained by her side, his respect and affection clearly genuine as they danced and celebrated with their friends. As the evening wound down and couples began departing for after-parties and late-night activities, Sophia reflected on everything that had led to this moment. Master Kim's teachings about courage, integrity, and the proper use of strength had proven invaluable, not just for physical defense, but for navigating the complex social warfare that had defined her final months at Cedar Valley High School. Madison Williams left prom early, her social dominance shattered and her reputation permanently damaged by her own vindictive behavior. The queen had fallen, and in her place, a new social order was emerging based on merit, character, and mutual respect rather than intimidation and manufactured hierarchy. Walking toward Tyler's car in the warm spring evening, Sophia understood that she had won something far more valuable than a high school social conflict. She had proven to herself that the principles Master Kim had taught her, courage in the face of adversity, integrity under pressure, and the strength to protect what mattered, were sufficient to handle any challenge life might present. Cedar Valley High School's night in Paris had indeed been unforgettable, though not for the reasons Madison Williams had intended. Instead of witnessing the destruction of an outsider who threatened the established order, students had seen the triumph of character over manipulation, principle over privilege, and authentic strength over the illusion of power. As the BMW pulled away from Cedar Valley High School, Sophia smiled at the knowledge that she had not only survived her trial by fire, but emerged stronger, wiser, and surrounded by genuine friends who valued her for who she truly was. The girl who had arrived in Cedar Valley as a quiet outsider was leaving prom night as someone who had proven that true strength came not from tearing others down, but from lifting everyone up to their highest potential. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hits the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.